By 1975, before the punk explosion, the disco music and the new wave, the main movement in pop and rock music was the progressive and symphonic rock. In the first half of the 70s, bands in the likes of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Yes, Pink Floyd or Supertramp had decorated rock music with symphonic arrangements, instruments related to classical music, and studio trickery impossible to be played live on stage. Sometimes, every song in the album was linked in order to conform a global, unifying concept, as if they were suites or operas. Sometimes, a single song could last the whole 20 minutes that every LP side could provide. Sometimes, those pieces were divided in movements. In the song's names, words like suite, prelude, movement, or opera were used, or, in this case, intermezzo. Pomposity colored everything. Let's have in mind some 1975 albums like A Night at the Opera, Queen, The Myths and Legends of King Arthur, Rick Wakeman, supported by a symphonic orchestra, a polyphonic choir, and a narrator, Wish You Were Here, Pink Floyd, and some other examples of grandiloquence. The fact that ABBA included in their 1975 LP a track like Intermezzo Nr. has nothing to do with the desire to be taken seriously. Pop music was regarded as rubbish by critics, but for Benny's desire of taking advantage of those tendencies, expressing his passion for classical music, his virtuosity as a player, and his interest in the most assorted keyboards with which he already decorated ABBA's sound. Let's not forget Benny's love for the Baroque period, for composers of the Romantic and Classical era. Benny is fond on Tchaikovsky and Chopin, whose works he plays despite being unable to read music, and, of course, the Scandinavian folk music, all music learned with his miraculous self-learner gift. Nevertheless, he always showed his classical influences in ABBA's music. Let's remember moments like the piano in the verses of Waterloo, the majestic piano in Dancing Queen, the arpeggios which do the backing track for Agneta's voice in Chiquitita, reminiscent of the Bach preludes, or the artificial orchestral arrangements from his Mellotron. Intermezzo No. is supposedly an Anderson Olvaeus composition, but it is more due to contractual terms than real composition credits. Björn's typical guitar strumming has nothing to do with the classical mood and the pyrotechnics shown by Benny in his keyboards. In fact, the other three ABBA members do no contribution to this track. In the LP credits, it is read featuring Benny Andersson. Funny, dramatic, solemn, symphonic, and pop, all in the same. This exquisite instrumental work would be Benny's movement when he performed it live in both ABBA biggest tours. It's a pleasure to see him enjoying himself, how his hands rush through the whole keyboard, prompted by passion. This track was Benny's natural move, a small space where he lets escape, in a single work, his love for pop and classical music. And, in spite of its strange title, the number 1 makes us wait for a number 2, is maybe the only and true ABBA's instrumental work. Arrival features Agneta's and Frida's voices.